Hello again. One of the ruling delusions of the age is that the traditional idea of race no longer has any relevance in the modern world, and that all ideas of a white race and a black one, an Asiatic one and so on, have now been consigned to the dustbin of history. It is not so. In fact, the more we learn, not only about the present, but perhaps more importantly the past history of humanity, indicates that there is an urgent need to revive the old view of this matter, dust it off, and then use it as a tool to understand what we are seeing in today's increasingly multi-ethnic societies. I spoke the other day about the effect of 4 different human species interbreeding and the results which are clearly observable. I intend to speak more about this topic in a day or two, but for now I wish to speak about one or two definite inherent characteristics of one of the main human races. As I say, I shall explain how these differences probably arose in another video, but that they do exist is beyond question. Let's start with things like sport. Black people in Britain are very prominent in sports, whether boxing, football or athletics. Some have suggested that this is simply because sport provides a way out of poverty and a restricted lifestyle, and that it is this which leads young black people to aim to be footballers and athletes. In much the same way, when I was growing up in the East End, there were 2 traditional routes out of the grinding poverty. One was sport, becoming a boxer or something, and the other was crime. And it is suggested that the same thing is now operating in areas where there are a lot of black people. In other words, it is a purely social phenomenon. This is almost certainly not so. Babies of sub-Saharan heritage tend to stand and walk at an earlier age than white babies of European origin. The black children are also less likely to suffer from delays in the acquisition of gross motor skills than either white children or those whose families come from East Asia. This difference appears to have no connection at all with culture or nationality, being observed in Africa, Europe, the Caribbean and the United States. It makes no difference if children are being raised in rural or urban environments, whether it's a farm in Jamaica or Chicago or somewhere in an African village. Social class doesn't seem to have any bearing on the case either. It is simply a brute fact. Black children usually walk before white ones, and they usually run and jump before white children and Chinese children as well. It appears to be an innate difference. This early physical mastery of their bodies may play some role in the fact that black people make up a disproportionate number of top athletes, footballers, basketball players and boxers. Not only are many men who take part in competitive sport black, an awful lot of those, both men and women who reach the very top in running, say, have higher levels of testosterone in their bloodstream than average. It has been hypothesized that this extra hormone gives those athletes a little more muscle and perhaps aggression, thus providing them with a competitive edge. African American men have the highest rate of prostate cancer in the world. There may be a number of reasons for this, but one is almost certainly that black men in the United States have on average 15% more circulating testosterone than white men. This came to light many years ago and has been confirmed in subsequent research over the following decades. This extra testosterone might, some thought, also explain the prowess of black men on the running track and sports field. Of course, there could be a downside to this. High levels of this hormone are found not only in those who excel in some sports, but also among violent criminals in prison. Those who have faced disciplinary action in prison for clashing aggressively with warders are found to have higher levels of testosterone than usually expected. Here then is an innate racial difference which has consequences which we can see in the world about us. Anybody watching a game of football on the television in Britain or a game of basketball in the United States will notice the number of black players. This is a consequence of the fact that black people in this country belong to a different race from the majority of the population. There are other factors at play, of course, such as educational attainment and family structure, combined with other cultural matters, but these are likely to be also affected by race. There is a constellation of other traits which are dictated by genetics rather than culture, and these too have real-life effects upon the different races living in Britain. The onset of puberty, for example, which occurs on average a year earlier in black children than in white. Can anybody think how this may have a bearing on such things as earlier sexual activity, including pregnancy, sexually transmitted diseases? After the onset of puberty, black male youths usually have more testosterone circulating in their bloodstream than white boys. Might this also have the effect of exacerbating any inclination both to engage in physical activity or also to challenge authority? In the United States, as I said earlier, it has been observed that high levels of testosterone in inmates of the prison system correlate to increased incidents of confrontations between such prisoners and guards at the prison. These things, early gross motor development and early puberty, might work together to make black pupils more at hazard of certain negative outcomes. The problem is, you see, that until the 1980s it was believed that the evolution of modern humans was strictly linear, with one species giving way to another, so that every human on Earth had a common ancestry. Homo erectus turned into Neanderthals, and all the Homo erectus genes disappeared. Neanderthals in turn evolved into modern humans, and then all the Neanderthal genes simply vanished. We now know that this is nonsense. It was this old misunderstanding which caused science to abandon the idea of separate human races. If we all belong to the same species, then humanity must be a single, unified group. We now know that matters are far more complex than that, and I suppose that I shall have to talk about this next and explore once again the way in which our ancestry affects men and women today. For anybody interested in looking further into the things that I've been discussing here, to check that I'm not simply making it up, as it were, I give a list of references in the description to this video so that they can check out what I've been talking about.